Posnick from the YouTube API Developer Relations team, and I'm here with Dean Jansen from Amara, joining us live from New York City. And via Hangout, we have Arthur. Hello, Arthur. And I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Arthur. Hopefully we'll be able to work through those sound issues. Arthur's joining us from Sao Paulo, and he's the developer working on Amara, and Dean is one of the co-founders?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, so we're talking about Amara. What is Amara? And how did you get started? What's some background behind the company?
Yeah. So I guess we've been working on this piece of software for about 3 years now. Amara is essentially, we think, the easiest way to create captions from scratch or subtitles for videos. And beyond that, and the beginnings of the project really were around why is it so difficult to create captions? A lot of the software, while freely available, can be difficult to use. You've got to download it, install it on your computer, etc. And so that's kind of what the birth of Amara was. And we figured, this is the internet age. Why isn't there an easy way to do this, and why isn't it collaborative?
Sure.
And so the whole idea behind Amara was make it so that you can take a video from anywhere on the web, whether it's on YouTube or Vimeo or hosted on your own server, plug it into our platform, and then be up and running in seconds, and also be able to engage friends, strangers, volunteers, anyone on the internet to help you then translate video.
Sure.
So a big part of it also is around collaboration and kind of the Wikipedia style model. Yeah.
Okay, and to be sure I have my terminology right, is there a difference between captions and subtitles? I don't want to use one instead of the other.
That's a really good question. And we had a lot of learning to do also, and I think we're still learning a lot. But captions in the US are oftentimes thought of as something for someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, that will have the audio information. So if a door slams shut, then you'd get the door slamming.
Okay.
Whereas subtitle is, I think, a bit more of a generic term and is often used when you're talking about translated captions possibly without the audio information.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. So all right, you talked about the different video platforms that you integrate with, and obviously, YouTube shows. So we're very interested in hearing about your YouTube integration. But can we talk a little bit more about who the target audience is for your platform? Who do you find using Amara? Yeah,
that's another good question. Well, of course, I think it's also worth mentioning. We're a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
It's an open source project, and the reason behind what we're doing really is to make it so that video can become accessible, and not just in the sense of accessibility for deaf and hard of hearing, but also accessibility in a broader like linguistic sense.
Sure.
Of translating videos into as many different languages as possible. And so the audiences are varied. I mean, someone who's going to be a consumer of captions or subtitles is going to be anyone who doesn't speak a language, which I'm sure there are a couple languages you don't speak. I certainly don't speak a lot of languages.
Absolutely.
And then we have a pretty exciting community of both deaf and hard of hearing people, but also folks who are we have a caption team that's purely around requests from deaf and hard of hearing users. So they can basically say, hey, I'm interested in this video, I'd like to have it captioned.
Okay.
And then people caption it. So there's a lot of different viewing audiences. And then of course, I think anyone who's making video is potentially a creator audience.
Sure, totally. And obviously it goes without saying, YouTube is a global platform.
Yes.
I'm an English language speaker, but I often find myself interested in content that's not in English, and it's a real barrier to me if there doesn't happen to be subtitles for that. So I certainly appreciate it, even as someone who's an English speaker. So we talked a little bit about content creators, and let's say I'm not somebody who would initially think of, hey, I should be providing captions or subtitles for my videos. What's the value proposition?
Yeah.
Why should I as a content creator, really go about captioning as much as possible?
Well, I think if you strip out a single reason, then it can be easy to sort of brush past it. But when you think about the broad application of having same language subtitles or captions as well as translated captions, you start out with having a basis of better SEO. So your video is captioned, you've got more metadata around the video content. It's easier for people to find. It's easier for you to go back and refer to, well, when were we talking about drones in that news sequence?
Okay.
And we can get right there. On top of that, you have the accessibility reasons for deaf and hard of hearing folks. On top of that, you start to potentially, if you're engaging volunteers, you're bringing in folks and engaging them in a real and meaningful way in your content. TED.
It seems like a nice way of building a community around a video.
Well, the TED Talks conference, they have a humongous volunteer community of translators. I think there are 14 or 15,000 of them right now. They're all volunteers, and TED thinks of that community as a hugely valuable part of sort of the overall TED conference organization. And they speak very highly of the people who are, putting in their time and effort and a lot of hard work to translate the, 12,000 or 15,000 TED Talks and 20,000 TEDx Talks.
And this is obviously one of the more scalable ways of doing that. I mean, it's a very daunting process if you have one person one person who happens to know dozens of languages sitting at a keyboard. That doesn't scale very well.
Right. And so so to get back to your question, even someone who's a content creator that is just kind of, has a popular YouTube channel, let's say, and may not know a lot of reason to do this, if they want to get a more global audience, this is a way not only to get your video captioned, but also to see or to get it subtitled into different languages, but also to have kind of ambassadors potentially in these other languages.
Okay, and this is the sort of thing that's kind of hard to come up with really strong metrics about, but I'm certainly, I would assume that this increases viewer engagement. I mean, it just really raises the potential audience from just everybody who can speak one language to a much wider global audience. So
this was your trickiest question, I think. This is something that, because we're not the primary viewing platform, you can come onto Amara and watch videos in different languages, but I think a lot of times people are syncing subtitles back to YouTube, let's say, or on TED.com. They're kind of hosting them, they're caching them on their side.
Okay.
So a lot of the metrics we actually don't have access to, and I don't know if that's something, if we would love it if YouTube started making some of this stuff more public, or even a broad summary of here's what we're seeing across lots of videos.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to follow up with internally, definitely. Okay, so hopefully folks are aware of the power of captions and why going about captioning your videos is pretty important. Can we actually dive into a demo of how you could use Amara to do that? And
Absolutely.
I might have to unlock
Oh, sure.
for you right now, but if we can pull up the demo, I think we should be good to go.
All right. So I chose a nice and non-copyrighted Creative Commons video for us to experiment with here. I'll jump over to the Amara website. It's, I guess right now, a little bit, there's a lot going on right now, but the most important thing is there's a box right here that says put a URL in and click subtitle.
Okay.
So I'll go back to my YouTube tab. I'm going to copy the URL here of this Creative Commons video. I'll paste it in, press subtitle, and fingers crossed. Bingo. Okay, so this is an Amara video page. This is kind of the home base for the page, and if you're wanting to, or for the video, if you're wanting to invite other folks in, this is where you would point them.
Okay. So again, you can put in any video idea you want here. It's not necessarily something in your own channel. It might be something that you're just interested in and you want to engage the community in crowdsourcing the captions. Okay.
Right. And so, yeah, and it can be pretty much any kind of video, any format that you want.
Sure.
So I'm just going to click on the Subtitle Me button, and then it's going to ask what language is the video in. It's in English. We're going to subtitle into English.
Okay.
and there's kind of a little tutorial video that I won't go into. Let's see. So this is the interface. This is all pretty much all HTML, CSS, JavaScript.
Okay.
Of course, the video itself, I think maybe Flash, but doesn't require Flash. Any modern browser will use this. I think we're in Chrome right now.
Yeah, hopefully you're using the iframe player API, which will use HTML5 video for playback.
Oh.
I haven't double checked that, but that we can talk about the technical.
We'll
aspects
ask
with
Arthur,
Yeah.
and we've got a new editor that we're just about to start rolling out. So I think that if we're not doing it now, we will be.
Cool.
Okay, so to start with, I think it's for anyone who's done captioning, this may or may not look familiar, but the process is oftentimes set in point, type out what you hear, set out point, next. And so we've broken it into sort of 3 distinct steps that break that apart. The first is just transcribing everything you hear and laying it all out. So I'll do like one line here just to show how it works, and then I've got another window that has more work done.
Sure.
So I just press play here. Rewind.
What does it mean to be human if we don't have a shared culture? And what is a shared culture?
So being a speedy typer is pretty important.
So the interesting thing is that we've got a thing here called magical auto pause. That's one of the modes. So as long as I'm typing, I'm kind of doing a little bit of movement of the cursor to keep it typing. When I let off, it's going to say, okay, you're done typing, and unpause the video for me and rewind it just a little bit.
That's quite nice. Okay.
There it goes. And so I can kind of just keep typing, and it'll sort of watch the background of my typing and pause and unpause for me.
It's really nice integration. Cool.
So once I've got everything typed out in this other window, let's see if this is going to work. Successfully resumed editing. Yeah, all right. Nice. So in this one, I've typed out a bunch of lines. You just go through, you type out all the dialogue, then you go to the second step. Got another helpful video. The second step is modeled after a video game. It's kind of like Dance Dance Revolution.
Okay.
And the idea is that you're just tapping every time you hear the what's the dialogue, and it's going to time the lines out for you.
Gotcha. Cool.
So I'll just do a couple of these lines so we can see how it works, and I don't know if you're able to hear it, but.
What does it mean to be human if we don't have a shared culture? And what does a shared culture mean if you can't share it?
So it's only in the last 100 or 150 years or so that we've started tightly restricting how that culture gets used.
The internet-enabled and infrastructure.
So I'll pause that. And the last thing that I think is worth showing quickly is the final step, which is the review, where you're able to just go in and kind of fine-tune things. So if I time something late, then it's like a nonlinear video editor. I'm able to hop in, change everything up. If I made a mistake, I can easily edit it, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty intuitive and simple interface, and we've seen people as young as 8 years old use this thing.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I've obviously interacted with YouTube captions before, and I've done some API integration, and I know it as having to provide this data file that has time codes and everything like that. So having this whole automated process for generating that seems like a huge win. So that's very cool.
Cool.
And it's a really nice integration too.
Once you're done, you submit your work. You can then download the SRT files. We provide a lot of different formats. You can upload those onto YouTube, and now we'll talk, I'm sure, about the YouTube syncing integration as well.
Excellent. Cool. So thanks so much for showing that demo. Hopefully we have Arthur via Hangout, and I'd like to say hello again. Arthur, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Okay, and I can hear you now, so that is definitely a lot better than earlier on in the show. So thanks so much for joining us. I know that you're one of the developers who was working on this open source project. I guess, first of all, it's interesting that this is all an open source project. So if folks are interested in looking at some or all of the code, how would they go about doing that?
It's on GitHub. It's github.com, pculture, unisubs. I'll paste the link on the chat.
Okay, yeah, we'll add that to this video description also, or maybe do a nice annotation, or maybe it'll show up in the captions for this video. This definitely is a video that we should get captioned. And Cool. So, okay, I saw a really wide range of different YouTube API integrations there, Arthur. So, can you talk a little bit more about which of the APIs you're using?
Yeah, we use the YouTube API in a bunch of places actually. So when you're adding videos to Amara, basically our servers are using the version 2 of the API, which is the Atom-based one,
Yeah.
to gather data about that video. From everything from, is this video private, can we view it, then metadata, the title, description, and length, and stuff like that. So that's how we register that video on our website. We then, as soon as you add the video, we pull every caption that the video has on YouTube already.
Okay.
Not the auto-created ones, but the ones that are user-generated on YouTube.
And that's part of the standard V2 API that anybody could do for pulling the captions. Yeah.
It's the part of the captions API, which is just standard. So we pull those in. Whatever you have already on your video on YouTube, it's going to be there on Amara. So it's nice because if any subtitling work has been done on YouTube, once you add it to Amara, the work isn't lost; it's already there.
Great.
So that's using the regular API, the captions API to bring them in. That's pretty much on the back end. When you're using our tool to subtitle the video, or we also allow you to embed the video anywhere else, on the website, on a blog, just like YouTube embed. We are obviously interfacing heavily with the JavaScript API.
The player APIs.
Player APIs.
Okay. Are you actually using the iframe player, or do you know if you're using that or the older?
The iframe player is in beta. We are now using, I think, the iframe player only on Android. Because we'd just rather not use Flash. Kind of, it
Sure.
depends. We're slowly moving to the iframe player.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're out of the experimental mode for the iframe player now, which we're in for an extended period of time. So at this point, it's definitely what I'd recommend using for both desktop web-based interfaces and also on mobile. So you take a look at that.
And there's just another use of the API, the player API, that's interesting that we're doing is that you can embed the video plus the Amara widget on your website.
Okay.
Sometimes let's say you already have a blog with dozens of YouTube videos, and you don't want to go back to your blog and change all the embed codes to our embed code. You can use something we call the widgetizer. It's just one JavaScript you insert, and as soon as we load, we are gonna look at the page to see if there's any YouTube video, and we'll hook up into the already embedded YouTube video and load our widget together with it. So we can attach to an already playing YouTube video.
And that widget will display the captions, like kind of out of band.
It's gonna show those captions anyway.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Very cool. So in terms of programming languages, there's obviously a bunch of JavaScript on the player side of things. What language are you using to interface with the data API?
At the back end, we are using Python.
Okay. I know that using Python with our older data API is a bit of a challenge in some regards, so thanks for bearing with us there.
Yeah.
At this portion of the show, I would normally tell people, hey, maybe you should check out our newer version 3 of the data API. Unfortunately, one of the things that we have not yet managed to port over to version 3 of the data API is support for the captions. So that is something that very legitimately still requires use of our older data API. But I'm certainly hopeful at least it'll be added to version 3 before too much longer. So stay tuned for that. We make announcements about that sort of thing on our blog and Google Plus feed and that sort of place. Okay, so any general feedback that you have about the development process? Any gotchas that you want to point out to other developers who might either be looking at your code and trying to learn from it, or trying to do similar things themselves?
Well, I think the version 2, the data APIs, the older versions were a bit hard to work with.
Mm-hmm.
They're a bit verbose. They're not very Pythonic. I think in general, within the Python ecosystem, they're a bit off place there.
Yes.
But in general, all works. You just need to be careful. It's it's reasonably documented, and things are pretty predictable. I think at the scale we work, we sometimes hit API quotas. The smaller things that once you get a bit big, they start to be a concern. But in general, everything has been pretty smooth. The only thing I would say, depending if you're doing deep captions integration, YouTube uses for language codes BCP 47, which is the same standard that XML lang uses.
Okay.
And while it's a very good standard, it's also a bit complex. So if you're doing a lot of back and forth between subtitles, you just might want to watch out for that, because the way things get, the way the standard does, locator specific and just language definitions is a bit wonky. It's something to be wary of.
Okay. That's definitely very good feedback to be aware of. Cool. At this point, I actually wanted to quickly check to see whether we had any questions on Google Moderator from anybody who might be watching the show. I'm gonna pull that up real quick. And okay, so there are a couple that might be a little off topic, but there is one here from Sparkish saying, awesome stuff. Obviously, the setup is for on-demand videos, and he plans to tackle live video streaming with a similar setup and speed demon typists. So any, we're broadcasting right now as part of the YouTube Live platform. Have you been in any discussions with anybody on our end about YouTube Lives or other types of streams and captioning there?
Have not yet, but I think that's an exciting idea. It certainly has come up before, and is something that we'd love to explore.
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't think we just are ready yet on the YouTube Live platform necessarily, but there's always the ability to have captions that are kind of out of bound from the video and that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely a very interesting topic. Okay, so thanks so much for taking the time to go into the system, Arthur. Sorry I cut you a little bit off there. Hopefully you got through all the topics that you wanted to cover on the technical side of things.
Yeah.
And thanks so much, Dean, for joining us in person and talking about Amara. We will make sure that this video is captioned.
Sounds good.
If we could go through the whole Amara system as well.
Great, yeah, we can try and get it translated in a couple different languages. Hopefully.
Awesome. Very cool. One last thing, we plug at the end of most of our shows that Google Developer Relations, which is a team that I'm on, is hiring as always. So if you're interested in doing the same sort of things that I'm doing, going on camera and helping developers and chatting with people doing cool API integrations, check out developers.google.com/jobs. So that's it for this week. Join us next week for our upcoming show. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Later.
Thanks.